bipod. So you're changing your entire body position. So always pull it into your body. Lock your elbow in a little bit. Use your fingertips against the grip. And then just let that trigger, the reticle and the trigger are connected. And just bring the reticle to your eyeball.
Yeah.
And he started smacking the steel doing that. And it was like, so I still got that little gift.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to laying the reps down, man,
it takes time.
My performance isn't as good. So it's hard to be a teacher to teach people that are actually elevated at shooting. It's hard to teach them when you're not performing
with
to
all
that
the reps.
Level. Yeah. So
that's just a time thing too.
Yep.
Yeah.
If I knew I was going to be on the range, I'd have spent a week just getting prepped for it.
Yeah. Have you been to Bozeman before?
No, this is my first time in Bozeman.
Nice.
I've driven through Montana a dozen times because I was out at Fort Lewis for most of my entire Army career. So I drove through Montana and Wyoming, and I always dreamed of living here.
Yeah.
And everyone's got to be all in to move to a place like this.
For sure.
And I think my wife would enjoy it for a time, but I don't think it would be long lasting.
The winters are pretty rough.
Yeah.
This has been a long winter, and that wears people down pretty fast. A lot of people come here in the summer, and they're like, this is the most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah.
And then 6 months of winter just beats them down.
Yeah, and it's not an easy winter. Mm-hmm. It's a brutal winter every year, I'm assuming.
Yeah, at my house, the day before Christmas Eve, it was negative 40.
Oh my.
Yeah.
God.
We had
wow.
We had two major cold snaps like that this year. There was a week of like negative 30, negative 40 before Christmas, and then we had another one that was like a week of negative 25. It's been a brutal, and then there's just been tons of snow this year.
I drove through the Dakotas one year. I think it was in like 2014. I was leaving the Army. I was moving to New Hampshire, and it was like negative 20. I'd never experienced cold like that. I've been in cold places, but it was just brutally cold.
Oh, it just takes your breath away.
Yeah.
Can't even breathe.
Yeah, anything exposed is like, it hurts.
Yeah. Like your fingers, if you don't have gloves on, like 20 seconds, they're burning.
Especially like, if you're not even close to used to that, eventually you could build a tolerance to a point and elongate that exposure. But no, not me. I was Polly Prissy Pants, man. It's not good.
Where'd you grow up at?
Buffalo and Niagara Falls, New York.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was a cold. That's a cold place.
Get some snow.
We do. We get a lot of snow. I was born and raised there, and I moved. I lived in Florida for a little while, Pennsylvania for a short time, but most of my life was in Niagara Falls.
Okay. What was your childhood like? Was it outdoorsy?
No, not at all. I played a lot of baseball. I played a ton of baseball. That was what I wanted to do, was be a ball player. And my mom passed away when I was a little kid, so my dad was, he did the best he could. Mm-hmm. He's a Vietnam vet, and he worked for a power company. We were a working class family, and the man did the best he could, raising 2 kids on his own, and the world was set up different back then.
Yeah,
I don't know what resources were like, but I know the Vietnam vets didn't have the kind of resources that I have, or that global war on terrorism vets have.
For sure,
the Vietnam vets are the ones that helped set it up for us, so that we didn't have to go through what they went through. Mm-hmm. Those guys lived that war every day because there was no one to tell them it's okay. They just came home and had to get to work.
Yeah,
had to build the country. Had to live the life. Where we came home, I don't want to say to the comforts, but to the place they built for us.
Yeah.
And so my childhood, I was alone a lot, doing my own thing. I got into skateboarding and death metal and weed.
Yeah.
And I was just a stoner skateboarder kid for a long time.
Brother or sister?
I have a sister, older sister.
Okay.
But she ran away when she was like 14, lived in North Carolina. And I actually hitchhiked down there one time. I hitchhiked all the way down to North Carolina from Toronto. 14 days it took me. I walked a lot. A lot of walking.
That sounds like more walking than hitchhiking.
Little Mushogi going on there. I just didn't know what it was. A Musogi. Yeah. Yeah. I just showed up at her door. She had no idea I was coming. And I lived down there for a bit, but a lot of the time was spent on my own with my friends and just doing my thing when my dad worked. Mm-hmm. And he hunted shotgun deer and took me. We had this little camp down in the mountains, in the Allegheny Mountains, the family camp. And he would take me every year, but I went with him, but I never got really hooked and interested. I liked the experience more than the hunt.
Just spending time out with him.
My dad, my uncles, my grandpa. It was there was always stew and coffee and this little trailer. It was awesome. Camp was the greatest thing, for a young man to experience or a kid to experience for this kid. But that kind of petered away as life goes on and people move on and do their own things. But yeah, it was mainly a city, small town, medium-sized city upbringing.
Do you finish high school there?
Mm-mm. Like I dropped out in 9th grade. Yep, I dropped out and I dropped back in eventually. I got 2 master's degrees now and
just took some time.
Well, it took about 25 years to finish high school. But,
so where'd you go after that Buffalo era?
Well, I was in a band for about a decade.
Okay.
We started out as a rapcore band. Yeah, it was a thing. It was popular, and we started out as a rapcore band. Very large pants.
Jenkos?
Yeah. There are pictures on the internet. I didn't really get into the Jenko thing because I always despised bell bottoms, and I equated them to bell bottoms.
They're close.
They're close. They just started higher up. So I was cargo shorts.
Yeah,
was kind of my thing, and we played rapcore for a while, and then we had a lineup change and went more metal, a little more metally, and we got a phone call one day from a guy named Mike Sack. Mike was the music supervisor of the UFC, which was at that time pretty small. It wasn't tiny. It wasn't nearly as big as it is today.
Starting up
organization. And he was from Buffalo, New York, but he wanted to find a band from his hometown. So it just happened to be right place, right time sort of thing. It wasn't because we were exceptionally talented. There's a lot of good bands and musicians out there. And then they paid for us to go into the studio and write the theme song. It's still the same song, too. It was in 2003.
That's insane. Yeah. Same song.
It's called Face the Pain. And it's got a couple of different iterations over the years. It went from very rapcore-y to metal-y to hard rock, but same song, just a little different flavor on each iteration of it.
That's wild. So you were just traveling around. Were you guys like traveling around in a van for your band?
Yeah. We had a van and a trailer. Yep, van and a trailer, just making records on our own, an independent band, just zipping around the country making music, playing shows. Everyone had jobs that you could keep. It's a hard life to keep a job and a relationship in.
Oh, I bet.
So you don't get paid nearly. At that time, getting a record deal was like the golden goose. Mm-hmm. That you tried to get the attention of A&R or any of the A&Rs for a record label because they paid your bills, and it gave you credibility. But at the same time, the industry was changing. There was this shift to internet, to MP3, to Napster, MP3.com, and a lot more bands were becoming independent and weren't relying on record labels. So that's kind of the path we went down. And then I started to get an interest in recording music. Because studio time was so expensive. And whenever you have an idea, you just always wanted to put it on wax, to put it on tape, something. So I started dabbling in recording, and eventually, I don't know how, but I got really good at it. And I started getting business. So with all the money I was making recording, I was just buying more equipment, updating the studio. Our studio was the same as our rehearsal space. We bought an old bar in town and turned it into a recording studio.
That's
our rehearsal space. Yeah. And it was, business was booming. I had a falling out with the band, and I went and opened a studio on my own and just put all of my time and dedication into writing and producing music with other bands and then publishing. So I put a huge catalog of just generic rock music out. Some were 1-minute-long songs or 30 seconds or 15 seconds. And I started to just sell them to publishers for like 0 licensing fee and then 60-40 split on master sync and royalties. And I started to generate a pretty good revenue. To this day, we'll be sitting there, wife and I will be sitting there watching TV or something, and I'm like, that's me. That's me. Just on some random Pepsi commercial or something.
Insane.
Yeah, it's funny stuff.
That was a strange time in music too, all that Napster stuff and all the free downloads, and that was a weird time with music.
It was weird because the industry made it weird. The artist always I was conflicted because the artist is always the perception is getting screwed over by the label. But the label gives you $1 million to make your album, to tour, to go sell records. So they fronted you the money. It's like a bank. You agreed to take the money. Now you got to go pay it back. Mm-hmm. And so you don't get anything back until they make their money back. They recoup that $1 million. And there was an attitude, it wasn't everybody, but there were some attitudes where, this is my music. I shouldn't have to pay this kind of, not make the money. And I'd always thought, then just make the music then. Like, music's free. If you stop making it, somebody else is going to make it. Birds have been making it for centuries, or for millions of years.
Yeah.
So to get a little more humble and a little more hustle and see what happens. And, being in a band is like being in a relationship with four people, like being married to 4 people.
It's intense, I bet.
Everyone's got to please each other, and emotions are on high. And whatever you're experiencing that day, someone else is experiencing the opposite. So your bad day, they're having a good day, and you're in a 12 square foot van with that person.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough, but it was a very cool time. But what it did was and it was all me. It wasn't the band itself, but I was pretty destructive. It ruined relationships. It was really selfish, and I was the personification of what I didn't like in the music industry. I was what I didn't like in that whole industry. I was that superficial person that felt like I had status because I did something that really wasn't that important.
Did that hit you while you were doing the job, or later on?
Right after, when I left the band and I was on my own, I kind of really started feeling those signals of, this is superficial. I'm not offering the world anything better. I'm not special. And that's when I said, I was in my 30s, and I'd said, I need to change, and I need to change now. I've been running this destructive life for so long. I wasn't into hard drugs or anything like that, but I was just a shitty person, man. And in my eyes, and I joined the Army.
How old were you when you joined?
34.
Dang.
Yeah. Joined the Army, and then it fixed me pretty good.
Yeah.
It was cool because when I got to basic training, I had to train up. I was a slob. I was out of shape. I didn't have any discipline. And it just hit me out of nowhere that I had to do this thing. It can all stem back. My dad used to take me to a cemetery every Memorial Day to put flags on the graves of veterans. And it was always this special thing. So that's where I started my workouts, was at that cemetery. And I'd run, it's about a mile. And I couldn't run a mile without stopping.
Getting ready for basic?
Just getting ready for basic training. And it was, I can't remember the exact date, but it was in March. I ran my first nonstop mile in that cemetery. And it was like, I can go do anything. I can do anything, it doesn't matter. Nothing will ever stop me. And the funny thing is, a year later, about on that same date, I ran 10 miles with my unit. And it was just like, nothing can stop me. But
that's amazing.
Yeah, going into basic training for infantry, all my worries were gone. I just had to wake up, do what I was told. I was fed. I was housed. I had no problems.
Got a community around you.
It was so easy for me. And you'd see these younger kids struggling so much. And of course, that life experience makes a big difference, perspective. And this 18-year-old kid's never left home. He's just having the worst time of his life.
Homesick.
Yeah. And someone's yelling at him all the time. You can't convey, dude, this is easy. You can't share life with them.
Yeah,
and say,
doesn't
here,
sink in.
Close your eyes and look at this. Yeah, this could be you, but they have to go through it themselves, and they do. They end up coming down because it's the Army does. It breaks you down and builds you up, or basic training does.
Where was your basic at?
Benning, Georgia.
Okay.
Yep. And it was awesome. I missed it all the time. I always think about it. Last night, I walked outside, and we're here in Great Cliffs Ranch. And I looked up at the stars as I was going to I'm staying in an RV down there for the night. And I looked up at the stars, and I always think about this too. I see an airplane. And I remember when I was in Benning, and we're doing PT at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was dark out, there's stars, and I'd see an airplane. So I'm doing sit-ups. I'd see this airplane, and I could be on one of these days, getting out of here. And it makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Because I wish I was back there doing those sit-ups sometimes. And yeah, I did the Army thing. I don't know where I was going with that whole story.
So what happened after you finished basic? You finished basic, and then what?
I went to Fort Lewis, 2nd Infantry Division. And then that's where it all changed for me. You know, my whole life changed into a disciplined person, an empathetic person. I found out I watched leadership. I was just absorbing all this stuff, and it was easy. Other people would tell you it's going to be tough because there's going to be this 20-year-old kid yelling at you, but it wasn't. It wasn't hard. It was very easy because that 20-year-old kid, he's been to war. I haven't. He's yelling at me, but who cares?
It's making you better.
Yeah, I'm going to be side by side with this guy at some point. This 20-year-old sergeant, screaming at the old man to do push-ups and jokes on you. I'm getting paid.
You were probably craving it a little bit.
Yeah. It was. There was a little self-immolation there and penance too. Mm-hmm. You know, when you've been leading this life that didn't offer anyone anything but the people around you discomfort and pain just by being a jerk, right? Yeah. You deserve this suffering, but it wasn't suffering. It was, I didn't know it at the time, but it was, Bert Soren told me about this thing called fortress theory, where you're stacking bricks. Everything you do, you're stacking bricks. You're building your fortress. And when I look back, I just see all these bricks I'm stacking, and it's getting bigger, and my fortress is getting stronger and wider.
That's a good analogy.
Dude, it's changed my life. Just that conversation with him. Everything I do, when I wake up in the morning, I could go get coffee, or I could smack down 30 ounces of water with some electrolytes in it. Brick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If I take the coffee, just knock a brick off. Wait an hour or two and have the coffee. Brick.
Yeah. You know? That is a good analogy.
It's so easy. It's so easy to take the stairs now instead of an escalator.
Brick.
Yeah. It's just so easy. And it's self-accountability in my imagination. Your workouts are going to be a lot easier, hard, but easier to do because I got bricks.
That's gold. It's kind of like that +1 versus a -1. Do you want to? Is this a +1 decision or a -1 decision?
Yeah. There's no zeros.
Yeah.
There's no indifference in that.
So what year was it when you first got to Fort Lewis?
2009.
Okay.
2009. Yep. The end of 2009. I'm sorry, 2010. End of 2010. Yeah, 2010.
So things were super active in Afghanistan.
Yep. And I ended up in Afghanistan in 2012. We did a lot of train up to it. It was in a little place called Panjwai. And at that time, in those years, there was a lot of supply lines coming into Panjwai. That was the birthplace of the Taliban in Afghanistan in the 90s. That was their birthplace. So it was a significant, I don't know how to describe it, to disrupt and defeat them there was really significant as a moral victory more than it was strategic, I think.
Yeah.
But I also was a soldier, and I didn't have my eyes on strategy. I was low level, a specialist and a sergeant, and I didn't have that big overview of the overall war strategy. And that's a that was a huge player, because a lot of us, have you ever seen Born on 4th of July?
Yep.
Okay. I could never understand that movie. The movie used to enrage me because of my dad, his experience. And it made me mad, right? How could you be this unpatriotic? And it wasn't until Afghanistan that I understand it, where I'm all for the cause. What's the cause? What am I doing here?
Yeah.
Why are our kids dying? And it turned into not anti-America, of course, but we need more questions.
Yeah.
Because no one knows what we're doing. We're going out every day, getting into gunfights, getting blown up, being shot at. We don't know why. We don't know what's the advantage, even if it's just to push the enemy away. Let us know. We don't know what we're doing this for.
A little more information.
That's it, or a reason. And it's an interesting struggle. When it ended last year, it was a whole bunch of stuff got dug up. It was super weird. And I talked to a couple of my buddies about it, and I was like, how are you feeling? And everyone was feeling the same way, like, really weird. This is so strange. And I can't remember the guy's name, and I hate myself for it, but he was the CEO of Combat Flip Flops.
Okay.
He wrote this letter called Written in Taliban. And it was, if anyone looks that up, it's a great read. It's a quick essay, but it's the Taliban's perspective of our retreat and our whole time there. And it summed it up in a better way than any general I've ever heard do it.
And they wrote it.
Well, it was written by an American from a Taliban perspective.
Got it.
And yeah, we call it the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And it was a retreat in the ugliest ways. And, it dug these things up. But they're so much more manageable now than it would have been 5 years ago.
Stirred up a lot of feelings in a lot of guys.
Crazy, man. It was crazy. For me personally, I was able to handle them because I have the perfect partner in life. She knows me in ways when the right levers to pull to get me down, to keep me where I need to be. And, going through that without my wife, who knows what the result would have been. But having this person that gets you, that deals with you. She met me at my worst.
Yeah.
She met the 250-pound Rich with PTSD and beginnings of a drug problem, an alcohol problem, and a poor me problem. And she's not I don't know if she's a fixer or what, but she's like, all right, I'm in. She enlisted.
The highs and the lows.
Yeah, it was cool. And but it was great because that retreat, that withdrawal, and those emotions, when you sit back and you look at it and you think of the kids that didn't come home and their families, and it's like, well, I can sit here and feel sorry for myself. But I've been there before. I can do that. I'm very good at that. Or why don't I just go live my life for them? And that's kind of what, and I can look at my wife and daughter and be like, because I live for them. This is a big tent. Let me bring more of these people in. And so I wear a memorial bracelet. I've been wearing this one for 10 years. And I'll tell you, man, after that withdrawal, it started to really mean something. It wasn't just a bracelet to wear. It was a reminder like, nah, dude, you got some work to do.
Yeah.
And you got to get to work every day. And that's, up here and in here. And
a life worth serving for type mentality.
Yeah. So it took it from why are we here to, well, you were there and you were a warrior. And so were all these other people. And the ones that didn't make it home, you better honor them that way. So yeah, the end of that stirred up a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of clouds. Like we discussed before, how COVID changed a lot of the paradigm of how people are living.
For sure.
Well, so did that. And it took me and said, you might have been a warrior for a fraction of your life, but you need to start being one for the rest of it, and whatever that means. So I get to start defining what that means. For the people that didn't come home, for my family, yeah, all of them.
It took you a while to get to that point, though, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How long were you in the Army?
4 years.
Okay.
That wasn't long.
All infantry.
Yep. And yeah, I got out in 2014. I was married at the time to a girl that I met out there who was from New Hampshire, whose sister was a friend of mine from back in my music days. Small world, man. It's
Small world.
stupid. It's just all, I don't know. It's confusing. I know what happened, but it confuses me thinking about it. Yeah, we met. We hit it off real well. I think we were both very lonely. As much as I had focus and drive, I was still lonely for companionship. Same with her situation. And we just got married.
While you were in or after you got out?
While I was in.
Okay.
I got out because she wanted to get out. She didn't like the Army life. She wasn't in the Army, but she just didn't like the life. And okay, fine. I did my service. I was proud of that service. But I got out and we moved to New Hampshire, where she's from. And I'll tell you, I was never more lonely in my life. New Hampshire's a great place, but I was alone. I had none of my buddies around. I had
no PT, no discipline.
No discipline. It was absolutely nothing. And we got divorced pretty quick thereafter. She worked in an old folks home. I think that's what, I don't know what the proper term of it is, but an old folks home. And she had said, I take care of patients all day. I don't want to come home to take care of another one. And it was disgusted me. Yeah. And enraged me at the same time. I was like, am I not worth this? So, you go down other rabbit holes. You go down deeper and deeper into this self-created pit of despair, right? Poor me. And then pills, the VA, alcohol, self-medicating. I don't need anybody. And I've got my drugs and alcohol. That's all I need.
Because you would go to the VA doc, tell them what's up, and then they would diagnose with PTSD and then hand you a lot of pills.
Just bottles of pills, man. Yep. And part of it is, it's not laziness. I don't know what it is. I don't think decisions get made at those levels to hurt people. I think that the implications of those decisions do, right? But I don't think that most of these people have ill intent. They don't want someone's death on their hands either, as much as and you or I do. Yeah, doesn't have it coming. Yeah, and but that's the system, and you're always naive until you're not, right? You can be on top of things in this one area, but in this other area, well, that's the professional. I'm going to let them deal with it. Well, that's what happened. Yep, and. But they also recommend you don't do alcohol with the drugs they give you. But what do they know? Yeah. They don't know my pain, right? Yeah. So there I am just, boozing it up, taking, Prozac and Wellbutrin, Clonidine, just whatever. And I didn't know even what they did. I just know I was supposed to take these. And if I didn't, I'd get sick. I'd get vertigo. My brain was getting rewired. And one day I was driving to work, and this is a year in. I'd already met my new wife. She wasn't my wife yet, but I was driving to work, and I woke up almost there. And we chatted quickly about this. We all black out. We all
zone out on the drive. Yeah,
this was way different. I still do it to this day. Zone out, just going through mundane motions. We zone out, and this was way different. This was I came to in absolute fear that I was behind a wheel of a car, like it was jerking motion on the wheel.
How did I get here?
Did I kill someone on the way? What happened? And so it was time. It was time freaky. To get off this stuff. And so there was manic episodes. There was highs and real highs of emotion. And it took some time, but then jiu-jitsu and Krav Maga and doing things that were really uncomfortable and hard, and losing weight. It was 250 pounds and I wasn't fit. And it was 250 pounds of fat.
Was it hard to walk into those classes for the first time? What got you there, do you think?
Well, I had a neighbor, his name was Dan, who lives below. and he did jujitsu all the time. It was just, he loved doing it. And I had no idea, but he was morbidly obese. He was my 600-pound life obese. And his buddies dragged him to jujitsu one time to roll. And Dan was just big and strong. And he showed me his loose skin and everything and pictures of it. And I was just, what?
What?
That's not you. And it was 2 years. So, and I did combatives in the Army. I did martial arts before the Army. But this was time to really get back into that. I know what it feels like to struggle and suffer and come out on top. I need that. I need that. And this was a fighting school, which I didn't know there was a thing at the time. So this school was, they competed a lot in tournaments, in different matches, and I didn't. But I went there and trained, and I was a body. And these dudes would beat me down, man. Like
They needed that.
Oh, I would tap out like a double bass drum, like, you know. But it was great. Just burning thousands of calories in a couple hours.
You got community back.
Yeah, black eyes. I've got, just giant waffle marks on the side of my face from a gi. It's just awesome. I loved it. And then I moved. We bought a house. We got married, bought a house, and I moved to a different town where I started doing Krav Maga. And that, again, it's something like that. Combative sports in my life it's got to be there. It's awesome.
Yeah, you got discipline, physical fitness, community, accountability.
Accountability, man. Yeah. If you didn't train, you get hurt.
How long did it take to detox off all the pills?
I don't know. I can't remember. There is one thing. My memory sucks, and it's from taking a couple knocks on the head. It's not necessarily from just age, but there are stories that I've heard from other people that sometimes I thought were mine, and vice versa. Like,
Sure.
there's these weird things, but with some of the stuff in the VA that was good were these tools to help you sort these things out. So I started taking a copious amount of notes in my day-to-day, and I still do it to this day, but it started out as a diary, and then it just turned into, my memories are written down to make sure they're mine. And now it's not as bad as it used to be. But certain details I can't remember. Certain things are always just a blur.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took a while. It did, because I tapered off very slowly. Because if you just get off them, they're SSRIs. Your synapses are firing differently. You can stroke out. So it was dangerous. It wasn't easy.
I imagine it was brutal.
Yeah, I blew my face up in the middle of all that. I was smoking an e-cigarette. I used to smoke. I dipped at the same time. Yeah, it was. Let's tear this thing down, man.
Yeah.
So I started vaping, but it wasn't like the Juul vape pen. These were mods. I was buying parts. I was constructing vape cloud machines.
More power.
Dude. And I was vaping one night. I was working as a overnight watch guy at this recycling facility. So the only one there. There was a fire at one time, and the guy that owned the place hired me to hire guys just to have someone there overnight. And you could do whatever you wanted, as long as the place didn't burn down. If it started a fire, call the fire department. It was the greatest job ever. And I was going to college at the same time. Couldn't beat it. So I'm outside. I ordered some food. I was waiting for the food. I was vaping, and the battery shorted out and exploded. I have a video. Security camera video. Dude, it's brutal.
Explosion right in front of your face.
In my mouth.
Oh.
And the pen went that way, thank God, because it hit my Jeep and exploded 2 more times. Like, if it had went this way, we'd be having a different conversation today.
Bad.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, ripped open my face from here to about down past my eye, broke my orbital bone, 3rd-degree burns on my nose. I had surgery that night, and it was nuts. But I was an hour away from my house. It's where I worked, and I didn't know what to do. I grabbed my med kit, I slapped gauze in my eye, wrapped it around my face, stuck it up under my hat, called my boss, and it was just funny. It's like, yeah, I just blew my face up with the vape pen. I told you shouldn't be doing that stuff. I'm like, yeah, dude, you better send someone here. There's blood everywhere. I could smell the burning. I get in my Jeep. I got one eye, and I drive an hour to the VA because I didn't know what to do. So my wife, who was working as an EMT at the time, she wasn't my wife yet. I proposed to her 2 days later. How do you say no, right?
From a hospital bed.
Yeah, she meets me there, and I felt like when you hurt yourself and you're a little kid and you see your parent, and you're good until you see them, and then you can kind of cry.
Yeah.
I felt that way, and she's like, "Oh my God, really? You too?" We get in, and the nurse is like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Can someone just take control so I can break down, please? This is really scary, I think." And they're like, "We can't do anything for you here." And my wife was still in her uniform from work, her EMT uniform. And the nurse is like, "We will take him from here." And I said, "Ma'am, you don't know who I am, do you?" She's like, "No." "Well, I'm the kind of guy that has his own EMT. The broad stays." She had no idea.
Yeah.
And my wife's just rolling her eyes like, "Yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be all right."
Man.
Yeah. So they rushed me up to Concord. I had surgery that night. And my wife got to help. She actually got to help with the surgery. They were shorthanded, and she's stitching me up. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, that was in the interim of getting off drugs. But I gained a ton of weight while I was getting off those drugs. I was drinking still a lot, and then it was I started working at Sig, and the road was different.
What was the first job you got as Sig?
I was a test technician. So what the test technician is the dudes that engineering designs a rifle or a platform, and they have to test it, see if it works, or they make a change in an existing platform. They have to test that part, see if it's going to withstand. So I was the dude that got the paperwork, took the gun, and just went and shot 10,000 rounds or ran it through different destructive tests. Did that for about 2 years and forced my way into our defense team. So we worked with a lot of international law enforcement military units and for different contracts. So these guns would come in, this contract would come in, and the host nation would send a delegation there, or we would go to that host nation, the bidding nation, and compete with other companies, vie for that contract. And they were shorthanded. There was only 2 guys that did that job. They were shorthanded, so I just help them out. Mm-hmm. And I kind of forced my way into that. And then they created a position for product manager for that, for the defense team. And I got scooped up to do that job, and I started working on my master's degree there. And I was flying around the world, working on tenders and contracts and even technical problems. I flew to Bangkok one time because there was a gun that wasn't working, and it was an MCX. It just needed to have 2 screws tightened. It was a big trip for 2 screws, but
crazy life journey though.
Right.
Like from Buffalo to music to the Army
to finishing my master's degree in a airport lounge in Hong Kong.
Crazy,
right?
Yeah,
and then I kind of got beat down by the travel for a couple of years. It was just a lot. And I got a call. I was in Belgrade, Serbia, and I got a call from the vice president of product management in New Hampshire. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come work on this side of the house?" It was more creative stuff for 320 and 365. Mm-hmm. And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then eventually I took the cross and then the podcast, and I didn't get bored, but I missed being in front of customers. So I applied for a part-time job at the academy, and I had to go through this assessment there. And now I teach part-time at our academy too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a good company. It's there's a lot of opportunities, and I seem to take all of them.
Yeah, it's a good company with a lot of good people, with like a lot of authentic people.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because we're a corporation, right? And we have 3,500 people to feed, mm-hmm. and we have to make good decisions. And sometimes those decisions don't align with the things some of us want to do. You know, sometimes it's no, we have to produce these materials or this product because we need money to fund this product, and feed this group employees.
And their families.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when we took on the hunting thing, it's not what we do. And it's not a pet project either. We don't just dabble, we go all in. But we also, Patrick Hanley and Daniel Horner, they didn't want to take this and just turn it into hunting, Sig Sauer. All right, this is what we do now. It had to be real, and they cut their teeth on it. Mm-hmm. There's a good parallel. Jason McCarthy at Go Ruck wrote a book called How Not to Build a Backpack Company. And when I read that book 2 years ago, I was like, this is crazy because this is what our hunting guys did. It's go out, get face-to-face with one person, with two people, with three people, and get their feedback and input and work alongside them and get dirty with them. The Hunter Games, if I'm not mistaken, that whole idea was conceived in a tent with Cole Kramer guiding a hunt in Alaska.
That goat hunt?
Yeah. And they're in this tent because of the weather, and they just start ideating over this, we should do this. And it turned into this awesome event that brought all these people, these awesome people together. And that's how we met.
People from all over.
Yeah. You know, and it's just, and it wasn't some contrived, I don't know, just some big event in order to say 6 hours in hunting now, welcome. It was about the contestants. It was about everybody else. And it gives you credibility because you're trying to be authentic. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to do that. And you've got your critics and your naysayers. They have every right to not like you or think that what you're doing is a crock of crap because there's this company that's been doing hunting for 100 years. Who are you?
Sure.
Well, we're a bunch of dudes that want to do hunting too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with the experience with the military for so long and LEO. Yeah.
Yeah, we're a pistol company. If we had to narrow it down to one thing, we're a defense and a pistol company. Mm-hmm. And hunting doesn't have the margins that defense contracts do. Yeah. But it's got the spirit. It's got something else that you can't quantify. It's really hard to measure. I can measure your performance in a military capacity by, dollars spent, by output, by that contract. When it comes to hunting, I don't know if you bought my gun because you saw it in a video that Stone Glacier made, or I can't quantify how that purchase and that ROI happens. It does.
It's different. Yeah. And you could feel it at the Hunter Games, just I think like 40 competitors from all different backgrounds. Yeah. So you had professional NHL, you had some jiu-jitsu, you had some fighters.
Dude, you had Cody Nance, bull rider.
Bull rider.
Right? That's so cool. Margot CrossFit's, Ben Smith CrossFit. And it's like they're all at the top of their game at what they do, and they like shooting. Yeah. It's like we're going to take these people that are just very, very good at their discipline and enjoy this other thing and make this other thing that discipline they need to be good at this time.
And expose them to hunting too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool event, especially with the diversity of backgrounds makes for a really special thing. It's like, let's put really talented people in tents and just kind of see what happens.
And it snowed.
Yeah.
It was June and it snowed.
It dumped.
Your stage was the one that everyone talks about the most.
Oh, man.
And it was the worst.
It was awesome.
It sucked so bad.
Those hill sprints at 10,000 feet were legit.
Getting to it. Just getting up to it. The day two, people were transported up there because day one, all the snow and everything kind of ruined the mountain. But up until then, it was you had to climb the mountain to get up to the actual event.
Oh man, that was so cool how that was set up. There was the 30-minute time cap to get from stage 4 to 5, and we were 5. And so as soon as you hit 30, your stage started. So like if you got there at 25 minutes, the hike, you had 5 minutes of rest. Yeah. If you got there at 28, you had 2 minutes of rest. But if you got there at like 31, you'd already eaten a minute of your clock.
You got to go.
Yeah.
And that climb was no joke.
People were smoked.
We did it the day before, we talked about fake summits earlier. This was absolute bull crap because we did to set it up. We walked it just to get a lay of the land on one day, the day I got there, and cool. All right, this sucked. It wasn't that bad. Day 2, we had everyone went out, all the ROs to walk the course, and Eric and Mackenzie and I get to what we thought was the top. The day before it was the top. It wasn't. There's a whole other mountain on top of it. It's like, these dudes just grow more mountain overnight. What happened? And because I saw Dylan up there, and I was like, oh, this must be the top. There's a different path, but we must be at the top. And he's there. Oh, I'm here to grab packs if you guys need help. I was like, why would you grab my pack if we were at the top?
False summit.
There's more.
Yeah.
And there was more mountain to go. And then
it was so slippery and muddy too.
Yeah.
Slick.
Plus, you got team after team after team hitting the same footprints, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It was great, man. When you look at that mat, after my guys went through, I think it was, they were right in the middle of the pack, I think, as far as stages go that day. That was like their middle stage. You look at that mat, it was just covered in mud. The gun was saturated with mud on one side of it. It was
so much mud. Yeah. And then running those hill sprints in the mud.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And there's a little strip of grass everyone kept trying to get on, but it was all matted down and slick with mud on it. And you just see people slipping. It was awesome.
Those hockey players are so fast. Like they were definitely the fastest at those short sprints.
Yeah,
just smoking.
Brent Burns and Kevin Miller, right?
Yeah.
And who else was on their team? Was Cody on their team, the bull rider?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a beast.
Yeah, and they had Bam, and I think that's it. I can't remember who their RO was. It might have been Kevin Holland.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, just what a team.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to watch. And just watching each team had a different culture, different dynamics. The ladies' teams were like super supportive. It was awesome to watch.
That's awesome. Did you guys come up with that stage? How did that, I wasn't around for like when people came up with their ideas on what to do.
It was pretty easy from our perspective. I had a couple like texts and calls with Patrick and Daniel, and I just wanted something really hard, physical. But that all came out of Daniel's brain for sure. It was his vision.
He's a madman.
Yeah.
Yep. He doesn't sleep, and he's always on the level.
He's level.
Always.
Yeah.
The most intense situation or the most chill, he is steady.
He can put together a serious course too. Like some of those targets were hard to find.
Yeah. Well, he went and later that night after everyone got in and settled in, he went back out just to make sure everything was okay and set up. And it's, 11 o'clock at night.
Just to double check everything.
Making sure it was going to be okay. It's like that dude patterns things for success, and so does Patrick. Like those guys together, it's fire and water, and it's so fun to watch.
Man,
like they're just.
So what are you telling like buddies and friends these days that are struggling with the transition, getting out?
There's a couple guys I still talk to regularly, and one of my buddies, Tylo Allman, he's down in Arizona. Him and I have had a real good relationship. We were in the same platoon, same squad the whole time. And, he's struggled too. And we both struggled alone. It's like when you're in it, when you're in the thick of it, you're not reaching out to anybody. And that's what I've noticed. It's just, you don't know because you can handle it. Mm-hmm. Right? I got this. This is who I am now. And I don't want to talk to anyone because they might tell me something uncomfortable. They might tell me something I need to hear. And you hear the stories about dudes committing suicide. So you get a hold of your buddies. Hey, you good? And I got a friend of mine who's out in California, Anthony Arzati, always texts me out of nowhere, checking in on you, bro.
You good?
And it's just like it's great because it makes me step back and go, no, I'm really good. I've got a beautiful family, a good job, great friends. I'm really good. And then that makes me reach out to everybody else. Like he triggers me without knowing it to just reach out and say, buddy of mine who we were in the same unit, but not even the same platoon or in the same place, Adam Grego out in New Mexico. I reached out to him out of nowhere. I haven't talked to him in 10 years. Hey, how you doing? And he went through some shit, and now he's working with therapy horses and things like that, helping other vets. I was like, man, some of you guys are doing the greatest. You're doing God's work.
Yeah.
And I feel selfish because I don't feel like I'm doing enough. So that's next for me. Now, what do I got to do to help more people? I got through this. I see some of my buddies get through it. What about the ones that we're not reaching or that aren't reaching out to us? Because, one of my friends, he's been having a bad go at it for years. And me and a couple of guys talk about him, like, hey, what can we do? What can we do? And one of the guys is like, listen, man, I've been reaching out to him for years. He does not want to do anything. He doesn't want to help. He doesn't think he has a problem. It's like, if we lived in the same area, it's a different story, but we're all over the country.
Yeah.
And you drop everything to go help this guy who doesn't know he needs it. If he called me and said, I need help, all right, plane ticket, car, whatever, I'm there.
Yeah.
But I can't assume you need it. And so it's hard. There's so many organizations set up to help you, but you got to call them. You have to reach out to them. They can't read your mind. They can't read your heart. They can't assume that you need help. So
speak out.
Yeah, it's hard. It's like you want to help, but it's just like alcohol and drugs. Someone's not going to kick the habit unless they're ready to kick the habit. And who knows how far down the VA pill mill they are. Who knows where they are in their life without being really a part of it. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, that's helpful. Yeah. Yeah, I think if you boil that down, it's just checking on your community as much as you can, seeing how folks are doing. But then if you're in that rough spot, finding a way to pick up the phone, text one guy or call one guy.
Because you always think you're strong, right? Even I try to go back and think like I didn't ask anyone for help because I was good. It took a woman that's in my life to say, you're not good. Stop it. You're going to ruin everything. And you don't have much to ruin. And it's a weird thing. I've seen guys throw their lives away. I've seen them kill themselves, attempted to kill themselves. Some try to kill themselves with drugs. And you just don't know. You hear about it more than you see it. Hey, did you hear about Sergeant blah, blah? And I've seen some guys just wash their hands of it and be like, oh, it's weak. And part of me is like, yeah, that's weak. I know who you were 10 years ago. Where's that guy? Well, where was me, 8 years ago? Where was that guy I was 2 years before that? So it happens to all of us. And I can only hope that, some of the dudes that I served with, and hell, all the dudes that served and the women that served that are struggling, find something like Mountain Tough, Go Ruck, hell, anything to just feel like they're part of something that matters again. Because it's really what triggers it for a lot of people. You find something that matters that's a little bit bigger than you. I learned that from the American Legion, the vets that I grew up around. They always, with my dad, they always had events. They did things for kids. And it's like, man, this country spit on you when you got home from Vietnam and you're still serving these people. You're still serving. Yeah. And I feel like I never do enough now. And I'd rather be in this place than in that place, I'll tell you that. But yeah, there's a couple guys always organize reunions. I don't really get a chance to go to them. It's a party thing. Yeah. It's just not my thing. Yeah. I'm even older than I was back then. But it's good to see them organizing it. I get excited. I think they're having a reunion in Miami this year. And it's great to see dudes are signing up and they're going. And I feel bad that I'm not going to make it. But at the same time, it's still reassuring to know, I'm glad you guys are getting together. Stay out of jail.
Well, you could see, even a huge part of your story, you can definitely see a turning point, a transition point is around, for you, it was jiu-jitsu. And it's like community, physical activity, and adversity. And it's like finding that can help a lot of people. And there's a lot of different ways to plug into a community.
And it all starts with my physical fitness and toughness goes back and forth. And that's directly related to my discipline or lack of discipline, 100%. There's no condition. There's no time. I gain weight because I lack discipline in that area. I lose weight because I get discipline back.
Yeah.
But there's one thing that can always point back to, and it was mental fortitude. Always. It's always, even when I was in that time of drugs and alcohol, I always could see some light. I always knew that I was doing the wrong thing. And when you surround yourself with darkness, it's really hard to see the light, but it was always in there. There's always a pinhole of it. And you start tearing and peeling those layers away, and you're mentally always, I became stronger and stronger. And then I wish I knew of that brick theory or the fortress theory way back.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I can see it happening, but from here on out, this is great.
Bricks.
I'll never fall off that again.
Yeah.
Because I just want to keep stacking bricks.
That's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing, but that's what it is. A conversation with a guy, with a friend, changed my life. And it was already going good. It just made it better. We had our conversation earlier on the other, when I was sitting over there, the other podcast. And we were talking about identity. And it's like, whoa, that changed my life. That little bit of that conversation, like, oh shit, I'm going to start identifying as a mountain tougher. Watch out.
Yeah.
Because now I'm building bricks or adding bricks to my fortress and I'm a mountain tougher. Good luck.
New identity.
Good luck, world.
Yeah.
Because this is who I am now. Right? Like, that's all it takes. Cool. Now the rest is easy. Now I just got to do what I already know how to do.
Just execute.
Yeah.
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 It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And it's this community, just have a conversation with somebody, whether you record it or not, learn.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in this, we're doing that elite guide training right now. And I'm sitting in this room with all of these very, very successful hunter guides. They have so much knowledge and it's condensed in this one spot. And I do whatever I got to do to not pretend I'm the smartest guy in the room. And I'm sitting there absorbing and listening to the conversations and the hunting stories. And they're not my hunting stories better than yours. It's just, they're all relatable stories. And all these people they get along so well. And it's like, I can't wait to see what I take away from all of this. And likewise, they can't wait either, right? So it's just this giant environment. There's this environment where everybody's absorbing information, knowledge, kinship, culture, friendship, all that stuff for a couple days and walking away to go to apply it to the world. And
knowledge is so powerful.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? All you got to do is recognize it.
Yeah.
And off it goes.
Just be a lifelong learner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Student forever. Yeah. And you'll be one.
Well, awesome, man. Thanks for swinging by.
Is this the awkward part where we don't know how to end this?
Yeah, this is the awkward close.
High five.
We like hug through the microphone.
Just knock the table. Flip the table. You said you were going to flip it.
Yeah, we got to flip the table. Sweet, man.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
All right.
Yeah.
There we go. We'll do that.